Now, for our penultimate session of the day, I'm delighted to be having a chat with Miguela Gonzalez, who's the Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Abcam. Hi, Miguela, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? It's been a great day. It's going so well. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm just having a ball. I've absolutely enjoyed myself all day, Miguela. It's just fantastic. So we're going to start by looking at your background. So I know you've had a long career at the BBC, but you didn't actually come into that with a formal background in media, I believe. So how has that informed, or has that informed, how you talk about hiring and potential?
Well, I think it has, because I'm a notorious interloper. I like doing things that I probably haven't had a formal background in doing. Too much dabbling. So yes, you're right. I did not have a formal background in the media. I hosted a radio program when I was a teenager. That sparked love for it. But, you know, I didn't have a degree. I didn't have a master's in journalism. But I got in on a work placement. And so first off, the value of a work placement is huge. And I think it all surprised my colleagues whenever I said, do you know that's how I entered the organization? But I think more than that, it's about, we talk about potential, don't we? We talk about recruiting for potential, etc. Well, that is, I think I'm a clear example of that. So I preach all the time about looking at those skills that somebody can bring to a job, not that prior experience. How many people in every job they do are going to have some element of project management, line management, some sort of creative element that you are missing out on because you haven't thought about the fact that they can probably learn that specialist skill set within 6 to 12 months and master it shortly thereafter. So that's one aspect of it. And then the second aspect of it is, let's be honest, we're talking about diversity here. So if you're talking about diversity, we have to be honest about the fact that there will be underrepresented groups who have not had those experiences because, well, it's in the word, they're underrepresented. So you'll be doubly penalizing them if they come to you with all of these skills, however, not the prerequisite experience, because systemically they've been excluded from those experiences in the past. And you are just adding another layer to that. So I'm a real champion for that, those transferable skills. And of course, every organization needs to look for creativity.
So agree. And I often say to people that if I'm asked about my career path, I say less career path, more crazy paving. Because, but very much that, you know, I've been able to grab opportunities and not been led by a particular expertise that I have. And I've been very fortunate that I've come across hiring managers that have obviously thought as you do and said, she has the potential to do that. Always exciting when you meet somebody who has that mindset, I think, because you know then that the possibilities are there. So you transitioned out of journalism and into diversity and inclusion. Was that as big of a leap as it seems on paper?
Yes and no. So there's a bit of a shift in mindset. So I'll start with the functional stuff, right? The way in which you work. So in the newsroom, of course, it's fast-paced. You've got these hourly deadlines. You're constantly responding, and it's like a masterclass in contingency work because you're just responding and shifting and changing and dealing with problems as they come. You're bringing those skills to D&I, but this work of culture does not move at the same pace. You might be working at the same pace, but the impact is not felt within the next 59 minutes. So you've got to learn a lot of patience, a lot of forward planning, and you actually have to do a lot more forward planning and thinking about that big picture in a different way. You're not just thinking about that terminal product that's going to be turned around in quick time. You're thinking about the whole organization and how everything you do, all of these little pieces, impact on a massive organization full of colleagues who will have who will have a benefit or not from any decision that you make. But I think more than anything else, it's about that patience, that waiting for things to happen, and understanding that the impact might be felt weeks later, months later, years later.
Absolutely.
But I think also, particularly in the BBC, some people might debate this, but particularly in the BBC, that work of impartiality. I think you could say that it's a sort of, we sort of force the audiences into a place of contextual ethics, if you will. So we sort of give them the evidence and make them build that story around it. We're not sort of trying to influence what the story building is around that. And I kind of see myself in the D&I world doing the same thing. It's a lot about context. It's about bringing that impartial understanding of presenting a context to people and letting them build that story around it.
Yeah.
So that as an organization, they're co-creating that path to inclusion for whatever it means in the context in which they're working. So I think that, the impartiality always rules everything that I'm doing.
Absolutely. So you've moved into a completely different industry, and also from the public sector into the private sector. Do you think there's a difference in how the work of a D&I practitioner plays out in those different sectors? And I mean, potentially even the third sector as well, which may be different again.
Yeah, so, I mean, the tenets of inclusion are the same, no matter where you go. Fundamental democratic principles, it's sort of that sort of notion. So you can't, there's no difference there. But definitely the ways in which it plays out, the way in which you work around it are different. So coming from the public sector, let's be honest, the vehicle for funding holds us accountable to an entire population.
Yes.
So that means the way in which we work will be a system of vetting, several layers of vetting and making sure things are right and nailing things, because an entire population is going to make an assessment of whether or not you're effective. And it that informs a lot of the decisions you make. I think in the private sector, it's different because companies want high-performing teams. And so fortunately, there's an understanding that you're losing out if you're not inclusive. You need happy employees who are working at their full potential, bringing their full selves to work so that they can feel happy and give you that full potential. And companies, private companies know that. It's essential. It's part of what's right to do, and it's part of the bottom line. And then you've got this cohort of people who completely understands that as well. And I think we have a unique context within Abcam, where I work, life sciences company, which you mentioned. And we have a unique set of circumstances because just earlier this month, more than 90% of our colleagues became shareholders. So there's that sense of real ownership. This is not just a figurative conversation here now. That's a sense of real ownership. And therefore, for them, driving inclusion throughout the organization and maximizing on the employees and the performance of colleagues is core. And so that really facilitates conversations around inclusion in a major way.
Absolutely. Just as almost a matter of personal interest for me, is that because Abcam has gone into an employee ownership structure, or how? So the share ownership is through what route?
Well, it's it's a program of growth. It's growing with Abcam. So it's sort of everybody reaps the rewards if the company performs well. And obviously we have investors, there are shareholders, and so we are just part of the whole conversation. It's not us and them. It's not just with the investors, but we are key parts of that conversation as well.
That's excellent. I mean, I really find it interesting when organisations are exploring different models of ownership, whatever that looks like, because it very often results in a very diverse ownership base, just because of the fact that you've opened ownership up like that. So I always find that fascinating. So what does Abcam actually do? What is the context of the organisation, and what are you working with, as it were?
Ooh, let me get this right now. Let me not. So we look at proteins and antibodies, and we effectively service scientists to achieve their mission faster. That's our goal. We want them to work faster and harder so that the world can reap the benefits of their research. So we service the scientists, and everybody wins. And so there's we also have an R&D line as well. And so we're looking at refining, making sure everything's reproducible so that any experiments done can be done with a level of consistency, and there's this reassurance that they can maximize and reproduce all of their results when they need to.
So I came originally on that crazy paving of a career path through a very technical background, and that was quite a different way of working and communicating for many people within that tech background that wasn't necessarily reflected even in the rest of the organisation. So are you finding that within a scientific background? Is the language different? Do people generally approach work in a different way?
It is interesting. So yes and no. So it's a really wonderful, warm, friendly environment. And I can't vouch for every science company out there, but I think I'm lucked out. So it's very open. Conversations are easy and free-flowing. What's nice is that there's that natural inquisitiveness towards everything. And there's all what does that mean? Can you clarify how that works? And there's that sort of need to measure, monitor, understand impact. And so you can't just get away with sort of garbled conversations about concepts. You have to really, in some cases, quantify, but at least be able to give a clear understanding for what the state of impact means in any sort of project or initiative. So that's really interesting. And it's nice because I've come from a loosely sort of evidence-based background in that, you know, you needed your sources, etc., in journalism. So you needed to prove why you were saying anything at any point in time. But in here, in Abcam, working with scientists, you have to do it in a more structured way. And data is king. Data is king. As you can well imagine. That's going to keep me on my toes, making sure I measure everything that I do.
So my notes say that you're currently engaged, I think, in a diversity monitoring exercise. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So here we go, more data, right? So we are going to be engaged in a global diversity monitoring exercise, because we are a global firm, to make sure that we know who our Abcam people are. What makes us Abcam? What makes us tick? What's our secret sauce? Why are we performing so well? Because we are growing really fast and producing really excellent work. We need those insights. It is going to change the dial because we'll have that real information. So we're not just basing our insights on engagement or who's taking up things based on tenure or age or function. We're going beyond that. We're looking at the whole person. So it's not just, if we are knowing who these employees are from an intersectional approach as well, we can add layers of identity on people as a result of the diversity monitoring exercise. And it's not just about insights. It's not just about, oh, well, we can break down our surveys across these characteristics. But it's also about uptake. It's about eliminating bias. It's about measuring who's in different levels of the organization. It's about who's bothering to engage with different processes or who potentially is being excluded from different processes if that is not happening. But, you know, we will know. We'll be tackling everything from a position of information, of being informed.
And what else do you intend to use that information for? Will you use it to set targets, for instance, around hiring as we started, or or is that a scary question?
Targets. There's always a lot of debate around the use of targets. I have to say, I don't know if this will be controversial or not, but I'm not a fan of targets because I do feel like targets are like taking a little Band-Aid and telling your hiring managers and fix this gaping wound right now by achieving this. The truth is that a diverse workforce is the result of a positive culture. Keeping your workforce happy, keeping them there so that there's low attrition. So companies, instead of focusing on that end result, what's our head count looking like? Are we going to keep counting heads? That's counterproductive. I think, you know, we have to be more about what is it in our culture that creates an environment that's properly inclusive. And then the end result is that we attract a diverse number of candidates. The end result is that we keep all of our diverse staff. The culture creates that. And so that's where our emphasis should be. And yes, we need to do the diversity monitoring to see where we are, but it should inform the work of culture, not just the end goal of achieving a certain percentage, a certain type of staff member.
Honestly, I love your answers. I just want to cheer and say, yes, this is how people should do this.
Thank you.
So my pleasure. I'm so enjoying this. So you're a global organisation. How are you reflecting the different approaches that are obviously going to be locally based? So across the globe, D&I is going to look different. So how are you dealing with that?
It's a very interesting experience for me, and obviously a lot of my work before was very much UK based, as you can well imagine. So I am learning a lot. But you can probably tell from my accent and my experience that I do have some experience from across the pond as well. But we are doing a deep dive in terms of what the cultures, norms and laws are. And that's important, the laws, especially around data. So that we understand that we're landing this message. But the truth is that there is an open culture already where conversations are constant between all of our staff across different areas, whether they're in Asia, Australia, the US, the UK, those conversations are already happening, and there is that sort of gradual alignment across what inclusion means. So we are going to be doing a lot of work directly with different teams to make sure that that message is properly embedded and to get an understanding of what that means to them, because this isn't just about me sitting here and dictating, well, here I am, and this is what inclusion means at Abcam. That's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Really, we're going to be informed by what inclusion means for everyone else. But definitely, it is going to play out in different ways, and that is definitely going to be informed by the local culture wherever we are. But there will always be that central messaging, and whatever sort of core messaging we used will be the top-level version of inclusion that we can find.
So you, as a D&I practitioner, what advice can you give to our other practitioners out there watching about being in that space, about transferring into that space, and what do you enjoy about it?
Ooh, there's so much to enjoy. I think if you have a natural curiosity about people, and then you have a natural curiosity about fairness, then it all aligns, right? But I think my advice would be keep learning, and don't ever assume as a practitioner that you got it right. There'll be lots of norms that we practice right now, and a lot of things that we say right now that we think are the right things to say. And sometimes we don't even question ourselves. So allow yourself to be challenged and enjoy the challenge, because then it makes you probe, it makes you dig deeper, it makes you have those proper conversations where you genuinely get to understand people and we move away from judging. But more importantly, more than anything else, we have to give everyone a safe space. Not just people with protected characteristics, just everyone needs a safe space, because you stop learning if you don't give everyone that opportunity for their voice to be heard. When you give everybody the chance for a voice to be heard, how fun is that? Because you just keep on learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, final question. I know that the people experience team that you're on is, I think, a relatively new team. But what is your vision for diversity and inclusion throughout 2022? Where are you taking it, and what do you want to accomplish?
Oh, that's a big strategic question.
Oh, yes.
So you're right. I am on the people experience team. I have some fantastic colleagues led by Danielle Norby. I'll give her a shout out. And we are working towards that alignment exercise. So as you mentioned before, we're a global organization, and therefore, we need to sort of find what that central vision for inclusion looks like at Abcam. We're working on that intersectionality piece, taking so many different things into consideration. What we in the UK perceive as protected characteristics, what culture means, what age means, what tenure means, what things. Taking all of that and bundling it up. So the big thing that we're going to do at the start of 2022 is that diversity monitoring exercise that you mentioned. And that's going to inform so much more of our work, and it's going to weave itself into a lot of the assessments of our work that we're doing throughout the organization. And then for the rest of 2022, I think there's going to be a lot of conversations around L&D and defining what inclusion looks like at Abcam itself. And so we're going out to all corners of the globe, wherever we are, in China, in Australia, wherever we are, we'll be going out there, just interacting, doing some workshops, and really honing what that message is and honing what vision for an open, inclusive culture is at Abcam. And then after that, we'll be looking at the rest of the value chain.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, Miguela, please come back and talk to us again about your journey. I mean, hopefully at this event next year, and it will genuinely be fascinating to see where that monitoring exercise has gone and what that's told you about inclusion at Abcam and where you've decided to take it. So I really do hope that you'll do that and come and see us again. It's been a real joy to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.